Everybody, this is Perch, and I got a question from a listener, which is, do I think that the comic reading audience, the comic audience, the customer audience, do I think that it's fragmented at this point to people who, buy the comics or pirate them or whatever else, they're reading the comics themselves, and a different audience of people who aren't reading the comics but are listening to reviews like the ones I do on this channel or on other channels, and they're seeing kind of little snippets and things from social media, and that's how they're in effect reading comics today. They're not actually reading them; they're listening to reviews. And when I first got this question, I think my first thought was kind of dismissal, like, well, that second group, the people who are just not actually reading the comics, but viewing the review videos and that kind of stuff. Those aren't really customers. They're not really. Those aren't. That's not a group to really think about. But then I caught myself and I'm like, well, wait a second. Actually, that's too dismissive. That actually is a group that we have to pay attention to because I think it's a bigger group than we think. And it led me, it kind of answered another question I've had on this channel for a while is sometimes I do a review or I talk about a comic or creator or other things, and people will add comments that confuse me because they're not accurate. They're like they'll say things like the one that always catches me is this old Miss Marvel storyline where it was during Civil War II and she helped run a little kind of a prison for Captain Marvel, and the storyline was like 2.5 issues, but people describe it like more than once, like many times. People will come into the comments of my videos when I talk about Miss Marvel as a character. Every time I bring up Miss Marvel, by the way, and it could be anything from, hey, the Miss Marvel actress was cast, to why does Marvel keep pushing Miss Marvel? Like what's going on there? Like whatever the topic might be, people will show up in the comments and talk about this prison storyline. And it always confuses me a little bit because this prison storyline was kind of a blink and you miss it kind of deal. It was not relevant to anything. It wasn't good. It was tucked into the broader, very terrible Civil War II event, and it just didn't matter. It was irrelevant. Now, I do think it was character damaging. Don't get me wrong about it, because Miss Marvel was at its best and selling best when it was kind of a wide-eyed, fangirl look at the Marvel universe. It was this somebody who wasn't an established hero. It's why, as they've had Miss Marvel kind of be the bossy leader of the champions or some of that stuff, why it's always felt a little not abnormal, just it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with what made the character charming, and I think it's one reason why the popularity of Miss Marvel isn't where it was at when the comic first launched, because they lost a core element of what was exciting to that character. But I see comments come in and they're going, oh, it's I won't read Miss Marvel. It's trash. Ever since they did that year-long storyline where she ran a prison for wrong thinkers, and I read these comments and I'm like, that it wasn't a year-long storyline. It wasn't close. It's not like this is quibbling over, was it 2 issues or 3 issues or 4 issues? It's like, it's a much bigger disconnect. And then the kind of the idea behind that, what was going on about a prison for wrong thinkers? No, it was not a prison for wrong thinkers. It was a prison for people that the Inhuman guy decided was going to do crimes in the future. It was stupid. The weird part is I find myself defending this thing that was dumb. Like it was a dumb storyline, bad for the character. The best thing you could say about it was forgettable. But it reinforces that idea that there is a portion of the comic audience that are not reading the comics and not paying any attention to them, and basically getting everything through reviews like this one. And now here's where I want to be fair about stuff. I don't get everything right, not even by a mile. I get things wrong all the time. These videos, if you haven't noticed by now, are not carefully researched 5 weeks worth of effort to put together a little summary. They're usually quick. In fact, I've gotten increasing amount of complaints lately saying, hey, this video didn't go into enough detail, or you left a lot of stuff out. And it's like I'm talking, say, about Frederick Wortham or the Comics Code Authority. And I'm like, here's a 10-minute introduction to the Comics Code Authority. And I'll get people coming in going, you left a lot of stuff out. It's like, yeah, you know, shit, it's a 10-minute video. What do you think? I'm not making a in-depth analysis of this thing. Maybe I should, but that's not what the game is here. The game is that you're subscribing to like a daily stream of consciousness podcast. That's what it is. And I get that won't work for everyone. Absolutely not. And like I should probably say more, like these things are my opinions, and you should always go verify your facts and look things in. And I get stuff wrong with the Tom King numbers, for example. I went through and I did that analysis. Didn't take me very long, but I missed some numbers toward the tail end. Now it doesn't change the picture of what was in that video much. It changes by about 3 to 4%. But I like to be accurate. I do like the numbers to be accurate, and I was wrong about that, and I admit it. Everybody should be willing to admit when they're wrong, you would think. But to the point at hand, when you're listening to somebody's review, and let me just use me, for example. I don't want to, last thing I need is people in the comments trying to second guess if I'm taking shots at somebody else. No, I'm not. In my own videos, you're seeing them through my lens. When I'm doing the Ten of Swords videos, for example, you're seeing kind of my view of the comic. And you may read this comic and have a radically different opinion, and a lot of people do. And I'm at least somewhat pleased that people feel comfortable enough to show up in the comments sometimes and go, I love this issue. This is great. I love it. Good. The last thing I want is somebody going, like the comments that always make me cringe are the ones that go, oh my God, I definitely, that issue sounded terrible. I definitely won't even look at it now. Thanks for saving me the money. It's like, I don't want to be I want you to still figure things out for yourself. That's what I'm trying to say. But to the original question, I think that the comic industry, as we look to the future, does have to grapple with the fact that you kind of have two customer bases. And when I say customers, I'm using that word loosely because the people who are just going and watching like my review videos and not actually buying the comics, those people are not paying for anything. I mean, Google is making money off you. I guess I'm making a little bit of money off you, but I make nothing. Just bear no illusions, by the way, for all the aspiring YouTubers out there, like, oh my God, he's got close to 8,000 subscribers. He's got to be rich. No, there's no money in this. Just let me just say that right out the gate. There's no money in this. No serious money in this. It is something that is impacting comics because when you think about a comics community or you think about people who talk about comics, and one of the things about comics that's been true for 40, 50 years and probably longer than that is this idea of community spread, not like with a virus, but with the idea of, people talk in the shop about things they like and don't like. And that's how a lot of discovery of comics happens. That's how a lot of people find new books and they get excited by things. And that's how this all goes down. But at the same time, when you have a portion of the community, the people who are adding their voices to things, the people who are basically commenting on books and all the rest, what kind of blew my mind at one point is I'm doing these reviews, and somebody reached out to ask me what kind of software I use to put together videos. And they say, I'm going to do reviews as well, but I can't afford all the comics. So I'm going to do reviews on reviews. And the guy was asking, can I use your videos to do screen captures of panels to then put in my videos for the reviews? And I was like, you can do whatever you want. I said, but just as a bit of advice, don't do reviews on comics that you haven't actually read yourself because you're going to miss a lot. You're not getting the full picture. You're doing a review on a review. It's like a bad game of telephone. That's not, good for anyone, but the guy is doing it. So he's putting out his videos and I don't know if he's reading all this stuff. I hope he is. I mean, Jesus, I hope he is. I think that the comics community and everybody has to kind of grapple with the fact that there's a lot of people who are part of the discussion, contributing to this discussion, who are not actually reading the comics that they are talking about. And you don't always know. You can start to pick up on it after time. There's plenty of people, for example, who are, not reading Tom King's Batman Catwoman book, but they've seen enough videos, enough comments on it, and you can kind of pick up on, the various, like, you could tell there's like a handful of insults. The uh, Tom King writes Batman who looks for a mommy wife. That's been a popular YouTube term. Obviously, it doesn't show up in the book. It'd be hilarious if it did. By the way, if King ever wants to troll some people, he should like have Batman crack a joke about a mommy wife. I guess that'd be fun. Actually, it wouldn't be funny at all. What am I saying? But it is something where, rather than argue against it, because by contrast, I think Kurt Busiek was on a thread with, I want to say Ron Mars, but it may have been somebody else, and they were complaining very aggressively about the people who the people on social media who complain about comics but don't actually read comics, and they were complaining about, like, these people should just shut up and they shouldn't talk. They shouldn't say things they don't know anything about. And that sounds nice, but it's unrealistic. Like, I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to you have to pass a little, like, a comic trivia test before you can comment on. I mean, that's just absurd. Whenever people throw out ideas like that, what always bugs me is not, and I think a lot of people just like to vent and have kind of creative brainstorming about these kinds of problems. But I always get to the, how would this be implemented? If it can't actually be done, then I feel like we're wasting our time talking about it. That's always where I go to any of these problems. If you can't actually do the things you're talking about, then I don't have time. I don't want to listen to these things. So, because otherwise we're just screaming off into the void. And that's what a lot of this stuff feels like. It feels like people who, they don't like negative comments. They've identified that some of those negative comments are coming from people who aren't actually paying for anything, aren't actually reading the books, and are just kind of regurgitating what other people are saying, and we're mad about it. And it's like, all right, cool, but you can't stop that. People are not just going to magically go, oh, you're right, I will. So it's a waste of time. So, to the original question I got, yes, I think we've got two audiences that we have to think about when we're talking about comics and we're trying to do kind of marketing and promotion and shepherd these books and everything else. You got a group of people who are reading the books and are taking something away from it, good or bad. And then you've got a group of people who are, part of this community, who are contributing to it, but are not actually paying, not actually reading any of the product. They're getting all of their information from another source. And rather than rage against that, rather than kind of close our eyes and wish super, super hard that wouldn't happen, that has to be acknowledged as, part of the noise that we get. There's a lot of, I think I got to say this part carefully, because I'm using a word that other people use to mean a different thing. But in this case, there's a lot of gatekeeping that goes on in comics from the customer perspective, where it's like, if you haven't read, the right issues or the right comics, or consumed the right stuff, then your opinion is somehow lesser. Then you're not as, you're not going to be paid attention to. You're not going to, nobody's going to want to listen to what you have to say. And I always hate that. I always think that, I believe that, if you want to come and you want to voice an opinion, you have an idea, let's hear your idea. Let's not be afraid of your idea, good or bad or anything else. And by the way, what I just said puts me in heavy conflict with all kinds of people, creators, big YouTubers, everything else. I don't believe that the answer is to, say you haven't passed some magical criteria bar of worthiness, so therefore you don't get to have an opinion. I think that if you're willing to voice your opinion, we should listen to it and we should digest it. And not all opinions are equal. Not all opinions are created correctly, and not all opinions are coming from the same place. It's like that Miss Marvel comic book. If your opinion is that there was a Miss Marvel 1 year storyline where she ran a prison, you are incorrect. There's no other way around that. That is not actually what happened. But what is the point you're trying to make? Is the point you're trying to make that, Miss Marvel as a comic book stinks when they have her try and run secret prisons? Okay, well, even though the math you use to get there is wrong, your opinion, I agree with your opinion. I think your opinion is correct, even if we got there from different places. And so I guess I've invited various guests on this show, on live streams and on things, and it always makes somebody unhappy. Like there's always some guests that people don't like that I invited on. Like, oh, why you this person's too much of a cuck. This person's a liberal. This person's an SJW. This person's a comic skater. This person is this or that. And it's like, I don't know. My assumption here is that, somebody's going to come on. They're going to give their opinion. They're going to say something. You can figure out for yourself if you value that opinion, that idea, or not, and we all move on, right? It's your choice. I've heard the argument. It's like, oh, you shouldn't give these people a platform at all. I think we're past that point. And I think that's kind of it's a dumb statement. It's like holding in water in your hands. It's on the internet. If you really are determined to get your opinion out there, it's going to get out. There's lots of places to do it. You can try blocking people on social media, and then if the person's really determined, they'll make another account and they'll come at you from a different direction. You can do whatever you want, but eventually stuff's going to get out. I'm not talking, by the way, about gatekeeping in comics. Like if you want to work for Marvel and the politics don't align with your politics and they don't hire you, it's a whole different ball of wax. I'm simply talking about if you want to give your opinion, there's a place where you can do that. And so trying to say things like, hey, you should somehow fight this unwinnable fight of keeping certain opinions out of the marketplace, to me, that's a losing battle. It's a waste of time. We have to come to grips with them. We have to understand the opinions that are being thrown out there. We have to decide, which ones have merit and which ones don't. And it's going to take personal responsibility on all of our parts to kind of research and come to conclusions and not just mindlessly consume everything that gets put in front of us. I definitely went off on a bit of a tangent, or a lot of a tangent. The point is, there are different comic book customers. There are different comic book audiences out there. There's different voices. And I think that one thing that if you're a publisher, you ought to be thinking about, it's how do I market to, manage, address, or at least acknowledge, understand that there are people talking about my comic books that are not actually buying them. And it's not a few people, it's a lot of people. And what do I want to do about that? How do I want to reach those people? A very, by the way, proactive publisher would look at that and say, hey, here's a bunch of people who have interest in my property, in my product, positive or negative, and I need to reach them. So I need to build some marketing, some outreach, some ways to connect with these people so that I turn them from observers into customers. How do we do that? If you work for any kind of software company, that is a question that gets asked. If you're building a product, it is, how do I turn people from observers into customers? What do I need to do? And it's the broken part of the comic industry, as I see it often, is that there's too much of a dismissal of people to say, well, those people are just observers. They don't matter. And that is why you're not growing. You need to be thinking about how you convert people who are interested and not paying into paying. That's the name of the game for business. Anyway, what do you think of all this? Let me know your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, but most importantly, and as always, thanks for listening.